Hey, what is up, Isaac? What is up, everybody? This is part 2 of the true meaning of life. If you missed part 1, pause this video. I'm gonna link to part 1 right up here. You go check that out right now, because in that video, we introduced this idea from the guys at the Bible Project about what the meaning of life is. And in this video, we're gonna crack that idea open, crawl all up inside that thing, look around and see what we can find to help us explain and understand what that idea is teaching. So what these guys did was super brilliant. They said, if you want to know the purpose of humanity, why don't you just go back to the beginning when the Creator created humanity and see what his purpose was in creating them in the first place. Ding, 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 brilliant. So that's what they did. They brought us all the way back to the beginning, and what did we find there? We find that God created humanity with the purpose of them being his image bearers in the world. So what does it mean to be an image bearer? Well, in the video, he explained how back in the day, no matter where you lived, you would live under the rule and the authority of a king. And the king would set the goals, the values, the morals of the kingdom. And he would be the shepherd and the caretaker for all the citizens under his rule. And the king would set up these statues all throughout his kingdom that would bear his image, that would represent him there, so that everybody who looked at that statue would say, oh, I know who rules here. I know what this place is all about. And he said that humanity's purpose is to be image bearers in this world for our God and King. We are to represent him. We are to reflect him. Like a mirror. So check this out. Think of your purpose as being like a slanted mirror. A slanted mirror you can look at from 2 angles. From the front, hi. And from the top, hi. This is what the Bible means when it talks about us as the royal priesthood. By royal, it means that we reflect God's loving rule and care from him to the world. And by priesthood, it means that we reflect the world's cries, pleas, and praises back up to God. So there you have it. Easy as that. Your purpose is to reflect God to the world, reflect the world to God. Not much more to it than that. Wait a second. If all of humanity's job is to be image bearers for God, why is everybody doing it so different? I think this is our problem. You see, God is infinite. He's incomprehensible. He is beyond anything that we can know or understand fully. So it's like he's a million miles away. When we're looking up, trying to see what he is like, all we get at best is a very blurry image. And so we're left to kind of guess what God is like. Each person decides based off of their experiences, by their studies, by looking at the other image bearers around them, what they believe God is like. Some think he's like this, some think he's like that, some think he thinks this way, some think he thinks that way. But each one of us decides for ourselves, this is what God's like. It's a distortion. It's a blurry image. And then people do one of 2 things. One, they try to reflect that distortion. And when people reflect a distortion, things like this happen in the name of God. Or number 2, they reject the distortion. They say, if that's what God is like, I'm not gonna have any part of that. So instead, they'll put something else in the place of God. They'll put this in the way of the blurry image and say, this is God. And their life will reflect that. Or they'll put this in the way of the blurry image and they'll say, this is God. And their life will reflect that. So we got a problem here, don't we? We got a bunch of people either reflecting distortions of God, doing all kinds of crazy things in the name of God, or we've got other people rejecting the distortion of God, placing other things in the way of that blurry, messed up image, and then acting like those things or people or beings are God instead and reflecting that to the world. So that's why we've got hundreds and thousands of different ways that people are reflecting what they believe to be God or the other things that they're putting in the place of God. It's a big problem. And y'all, that's why this guy is such a big deal. Suddenly, 2,000 years ago, this guy pops on the scene, Jesus. The Bible says that Jesus is the exact image of the invisible God. So all of a sudden, this blurry image of what God is comes into sharp focus, and we see exactly what God is like. So if we watch Jesus, we can see how God thinks, how God acts, how God speaks, how God feels. We can see the way that he interacts with religious people or non-religious people or people who are all kinds of messed up. Or we see what he does to people who are hurting, and we see the way that he thinks about government and money and death and heaven and all the things. So Jesus is a big deal, because if we want to accurately fulfill our purpose as image bearers of God, we need a clear picture of what we're reflecting to the world, right? And so that's why we get to know Jesus. That's why following Jesus is such an important thing. That's why being a disciple is such an important thing. A disciple just means a student. Study this guy. Study his words. Study his actions. Study his thoughts. And get to know exactly what God in flesh is like, so that we know how we're supposed to reflect God to the world. And listen to this amazing Bible verse. It says, 2 Corinthians 3:18 says this, "And all of us, without any veil on our faces," the blurry veil has been removed in front of our face, we can see with crisp clarity. It says that we all gaze at the glory of the Lord as in a mirror, and so are being changed into the same image, from glory to glory, just as you'd expect from the Lord, the Spirit. So the idea is this: as you stare at the glory of God in Jesus and study him, follow him, become his disciple, really get to know him, we are changed into that image. Our reflection of God to the world becomes crystal clear, becomes accurate, becomes not a distortion anymore, but a pure, true, accurate reflection of God. And in that, Jesus completely helps us fulfill our true purpose as human beings, to bear the image of God in this world.
Guys, check out the other videos right over there and there. Hi there, how's your day? And press the subscribe button right up there. Blink, blink. Comment below and tell us what you think. If you like that video, then smash that little button. Share a video with your friends by pushing that share button right down there.